a band of human mutants after the nuclear apocalypse, trying to invade their farm that they're trying to apocalypse. And welcome back to another episode of Exposing Ourselves. I'm Travis Ritchie, and this is episode 42. This is the show where we expose each other to new things. Matt, a big music fan, will assign me one of his favorite music artists to listen to each week, and I, a movie buff, will give him one of my favorite films, and we come together on this podcast to discuss it all. And with me, as always, is my good friend...
Matt Runquist. Hey, Travis. This week on the pod, I watched A Quiet Place, and you listened to the band CHVRCHES.
Yes, indeed. Episode 42, man.
42. This is the answer.
This is. We're the answer to everything, the life, the universe, and everything in this episode. I'm very excited about that. The number 42 is one of my favorites because of Douglas Adams, and I think it's weird. The journey of me and Douglas Adams is an interesting one because he and his writing has influenced me so much in my lifetime. But if you go all the way back to when all of my friends in middle school were reading Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I was refusing because I thought, well, if all of my friends are reading it, it can't be good.
Wow.
And one of those friends was probably Kevin Novacek, who is one of our early listeners. And Kevin, you'll have to let me know if that memory is true, if you were one of the people in our group who was reading Hitchhiker's Guide back in John Muir Middle School. But once I finally picked it up, I would laugh out loud reading a book, and I think that was maybe the first time that it ever happened to me. And so I have a signed copy of Mostly Harmless, and
who signed it?
One of Douglas Adams. yeah, before he died.
Nice. Good.
And I have, for Halloween I have gone more times as Arthur Dent than any other character, and part of that might be because it's a very easy costume. It's literally just a bathrobe and a towel and comfortable shoes to walk around in.
Yeah,
but
and a copy of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Well, and for that reason, and I can't show you because I'm talking to you on my phone, but every phone I've had since my Palm Trio has had "Don't Panic" as the wallpaper.
Oh, nice.
And every iPhone I've ever had since 2009 has had that. And, not even my loved ones make it to the wallpaper, nor my dogs. Don't panic.
I think your dogs are counted as your loved ones, but I actually read those books. Did you ever subscribe to the Science Fiction Book Club?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes, I
so
did.
I read the Hitchhiker's Guide books through that, because you could get hardcover small editions for I want to say it was like $8 or $10. It was about half of what you paid in the bookstore for like a real hardcover, but it was also probably half the quality. But I read a lot of books through SFBC. I was introduced to the Sandman comics through Science Fiction Book Club. I was introduced to a bunch of classic science fiction, but Hitchhiker's Guide, I had all those editions.
Yeah, my notable read from them was the Timothy Zahn Star Wars series, Heir to the Empire. And I remember reading those books through the Science Fiction Book Club. Speaking of books, though, I got, I think I mentioned to you I had gotten the softcover version of my book, Decimus,
so sexy,
in the mail.
Yes.
So, like,
The Vampire's
I guess
Curse,
it's just
yes.
Vampire. Oh, yeah, right. Decimus, The Vampire's Curse. So it's called The Vampire's Curse, but it's Decimus Book 1 now. And it's pretty cool. So the softcover version came. And then shortly after that, just yesterday, I got the hardcover version.
Oh, nice.
With, like, it's got a dust jacket and everything. And more interesting, under the dust jacket, they printed the cover on the actual... I've never seen that before.
Oh, yeah.
The cover is...
Yeah, they
printed
do
on the
a thing
cover.
they do that quite a bit nowadays.
Really?
Yeah, some people don't like dust jackets, and the cost of printing them that way has gone way, way down. So it's no longer prohibitive to do it.
Interesting.
So if you don't like dust jackets, but you still want to see your cool covers, you can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, very
and
nice.
You can see inside the pages. They're all like designed. And there's all sorts of neat little like graphics and stuff in there.
Nice.
The chapter headings are really cool.
Is your book
Is
your book currently available for pre-order?
It is. You can go on Amazon. If you were to find me on Instagram, I have a link to the link where you can buy it in several different places. But I know Amazon has it in paperback, hardcover, and ebook, which I didn't realize had happened. Now, the other interesting thing is just as I was walking Coco tonight, getting ready for this very podcast, the mailman dropped off a box from my publisher.
Oh, nice.
I don't know what it is. I've already gotten the hardcover and softcover.
The softcover
of my
and
book,
the hardcover.
Yeah. Yeah. They came from the printer. So what am I getting from the publisher? Should I open it up right now?
Yeah.
You want to find
please
out?
do.
Okay.
I hope it's a bed of roses. I hope it's a bed of roses, a blood vial,
a bed of roses,
and a wooden stake.
Because of the vampire theme. Well, it's funny. This is really awesome content for radio, by the way.
Yeah.
Although maybe this is a little ASMR of boxes opening.
Well, I mean, if you stop talking over it, but yeah. Let's see.
Oh, well, this is really weird. It's actually
handcuffs.
No, it's old versions of the book.
What is that?
It's the last year's version of Decimus.
Did you give them to them? Like to proof?
I don't think so. They might have gotten them from my old publisher that went under.
Oh.
Let me just make sure this is from my new publisher. Oh, I can't. I ripped off the label.
Well, that's all.
Yeah,
wonderful.
it is. It's from my new publisher. Oh, okay, that's weird. At least I have a couple of copies because I never did order a copy of those either because I wasn't going to spend money on my own
physical
book.
form. No. Oh man.
Yeah, exactly.
I definitely would.
I did buy my book on ebook so I could read it, I could have a copy on Kindle.
Yeah.
Which I also didn't need to do, apparently. I could have gotten a code.
Yeah, you didn't. You could. Yeah.
So, well, how have you been this week, Matt? Real quick, I've been ate up a bunch of time, I guess.
No, I barely have anything to say. It's been a music-filled week for me. I went to a show last Thursday. Classic grunge band Mudhoney was playing X-Ray Arcade here in the Milwaukee area, and I went to see that. I really liked them, but I really liked the opener. They're a band from LA called Hoover 3. I may give you them at some point. Quite liked them a lot.
And they were that good, huh?
Yeah, I really enjoyed them quite a lot. I mean, I enjoyed Mudhoney as well, but I had actually seen them back in college, these 25 years ago now. And let's see, what else was musical last week? Oh, on Friday, I played an open mic for the first time. It went very poorly, which was a little discouraging, but it just encouraged. I eventually reached the point mentally where I was like, well, this is just motivation to like keep doing these until I get better at them. So I'm going to do another open mic and keep doing them until I don't stink so much. And then just yesterday, we had Nopi practice. So the first time since before Amy's surgery, our cover band got back together. No practice, only play, and we played a few songs, and it was really fun. We had a great time, and it all went super well.
I love that you call it Nopi. That's a callback to way back at the beginning of the podcast. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and everybody else is on board with that as well, too. Like all the other band members.
That's great.
Yeah,
that name delights me so much.
That is
almost
the
as
official,
much as today's band that we listen to.
That is the official pronunciation. So
I love it. It actually delights me a little more than today's band, to be honest. It's high on the list of band names for me. My week was full. and incredibly stressful for me, but in a fulfilling way. The big event was I filmed finally the first episode of Time Wrecked, which is this time travel comedy series I've talked about before. I've had it in my head since 2010 at least, and we finally got together, and it cost me a pretty penny to get ready for it, as far as costumes and props and paying hair and makeup and food and all that stuff. But ultimately it's just money. And here I have created something. Yeah. Now, I don't know how good it is. My computer is frustratingly slow right now. It's being very difficult, and I hate it. But, and so I can't really play with the footage to see what all we've got. But the behind-the-scenes pictures look amazing. So that's great. Leading up to that, I had a interesting week. On Monday, I interviewed my agent at my acting group so that they could talk about, my agent is the head of the diversity department at KMR Talent, which is a kind of mid-level agency focusing on people with disabilities, which is wonderful, which answers the question that you have if you don't know me. Why is he in the diversity department? Because, as far as I know, Travis is a white dude. I am openly gay, but that's hardly diverse anymore. But what really is the thing is that I have, was born with Bell's palsy, so I've got the facial paralysis, which counts as a disability when you're using your face to act for people, weirdly enough. So then I did a couple of classes throughout the week, had an acupuncture appointment, and then all that led to Saturday with the shoot. And I was so exhausted that on Sunday I just did not have it in me to listen to the music and or record our podcast, which leads us to today. And I will tell you, let's jump right in, please.
Let's jump right in.
Let's talk about the music.
And that's a different way to switch things up. That's a different way to switch things up. I like that.
We're not going to shake things up today.
Yeah.
We're not going to shake it up. We're just going to talk about the music. I want you to tell me about the music, and then I'm going to tell you my experience with this music.
Well, first of all, what I will say about the music is if you had listened to it on Sunday, it might have given you the energy to do the podcast because it's very upbeat stuff. This is the band CHVRCHES. They are a Scottish, pop rock, electronic rock music act. Friends from college, which appears to be a theme for us lately, formed a band. Originally, there were 3 members. There's a 4th sort of pseudo member now, but they've released 4 albums. This is their 3rd album. It's called Love is Dead. There were a couple of really popular songs off of it. Almost all of it is very upbeat. A lot of bleeps and bloops from the electronic stuff, and a lot of weird sounds that are they're guitar sounds, but they're not they don't sound like Les Paul or Chet Atkins. They sound like from the future. So I thought you would really like this. I like it a lot. I think the first track is my favorite. So there's an argument for you. I believe it's the track Graffiti is my favorite. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Travis, what did you think of this? Would this have given you the spinach, the gumption, the get up and go to record the podcast late into the night on Sunday?
This would have been the gummy berry juice in my bounce, man. You are not wrong on that. I wish that you would have assigned this a different week when I wasn't quite so busy and stressed, so that I could have listened to it earlier, so that I could have listened to it again. This was, I will give you this. This band was probably one of my top 2, probably second place for first listen enjoyment.
Okay.
I would say. And I think... the other one was Dog Days. What was
Florence and the
Machine? Probably was a little bit higher, but this was a close second. Lots of fun, and Czechs almost every box I've got as we've gotten to know my musical tastes over the course of this project. And it was fun. It was energetic. It was emotional, but not all the same emotion. So all this to say, just preface. That's it. Preface is the word. I did only listen to it one complete time through, but. Boo, and this was just right before we were recording. Wait.
Oh, no, I heard. It wasn't me. That was the crowd.
Someone else was booing. Immediately after I stopped, after I got through it, and by the way, it went by fast.
Yeah.
Right? It's a full 50-minute album.
Yeah.
It's not short, but it was done, and I was like, oh, it's done already? And I immediately restarted it and got at least a few songs through it again, because I really wanted to. I just wanted to keep it going.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I have good news for you, Travis. The other albums are also really good. This is not.
Really?
This is not an outlier. I know that their first album is really good, and I know that their fourth album is really good. I haven't listened to their second one a whole lot. But the other albums are also really good. I had a surfeit, an overstock of good music to give you this week when I had to choose from
well,
CHVRCHES.
Yeah, this is great. And by the way, I every time I've mentioned to someone who I was listening to, I called it CHVRCHES, and I will not stop calling it CHVRCHES because it delights me. I don't know why everyone in the world doesn't call it CHVRCHES. Or I don't know why CHVRCHES doesn't call it CHVRCHES, because it's delightful. Like, they're already spelling it that way, so go ahead.
I'm going to agree to disagree on that one.
Try it. Just try it. Tell me it doesn't delight you.
Do it for me. My stomach hurts already.
Do it.
CHVRCHES.
Do it.
CHVRCHES. Yeah, it's, oh, God. Oh, God.
It delighted me when you did that.
Well, I'm happy to delight you, as you know.
Okay. It's supposed to be called CHVRCHES. I find that way too boring of a name for this band, to be honest. This band deserves a much more interesting name, and CHVRCHES is very fun to say. You in the car listening to us wherever you're headed, just try it out. See what you prefer, CHVRCHES or CHVRCHES. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, man. I was beginning to get a little concerned about our music and the fact that my musical tastes were being defined as being quite a bit separate from yours, right? Mm-hmm. It was as if we were like, mirror universes just being pulled apart and causing chaos in between. And here with this choice, you just slammed us back together again, sealed us shut, and everything is right with the world.
Wow,
so, thanks.
That was like a quantum mechanical explanation for what's been going on. But
I mean, like quantum mechanics in sci-fi speak, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah,
if any of you are actual quantum physicists, don't write in to tell me how this was not an actual quantum mechanics description of a relationship.
I'm really happy you liked it. I listened to it quite a few times myself this week. I think I listened to it 4 times.
Wow.
Oh yeah, I love this music. Like I said, it's very upbeat. Lyrically, it can be a lot more complex, right? There's longing and melancholy and so forth. I mean, the song Graffiti, I don't know exactly what it's about, but it's clearly a song about loss, maybe loss of innocence, maybe, loss of youth, right? But it's also just beautiful, It's like upbeat, and the way they integrate the electronic components to this, the keyboards and everything, with the guitars and with the singing, I think is really wonderful. A lot of times when I hear bands that are sort of in this genre of like electro pop rock, the keyboards either disappear completely like, so you don't really hear them except in like the quietest moments, or they completely take over the music. And one of the things I like about this is how you can always hear the keyboards, the synthesizers, but they're never like overbearing and like the only thing that you hear, right? Like this is upbeat pop rock, but it's not dance music.
No.
You'd never confuse this with dance music, but it also
Well, like
doesn't
EDM, you mean?
yeah, but it doesn't
Yeah.
sound like it doesn't sound like the Black Keys or Foo Fighters or Screaming Females to reference someone that you've heard recently.
Yeah.
You know.
And to be honest, when you described it as more electronic last week, I was a little bit wary, and it put me off to maybe trying to experience it a little sooner. So that's your fault, my friend.
Well, frankly, you're missing out. There's a lot of really great electronic music out there.
Yeah, I mean, there is some. I do like dancing, like, and I like going to clubs, and much more when I was younger. But I do enjoy a nice club beat of a song, and I was around back in the days. I was really doing a lot of clubbing back in the early 2000s, and dancing a lot, and these are the days when you're coming across club versions of like My Heart Will Go On had a club version, and it's just anything you put in. So I do like that, and I love the beat that you can dance to. It's I guess I don't generally like EDM specifically.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends. It's very popular in the gay crowd, and I have a lot of friends who go to EDM concerts, and it's just not my thing. But this was my thing. Nice. I really appreciated the electronica aspect of it, and you're right. It was done in a way that felt I don't know, instrumental, as almost as a more classical type of instrument, tied in with the voices and the lyrics and the music. So, and you said last week that you thought it might be too repetitive for me, but I didn't. There was no point where I was listening to this my 1.5 times through, and I was like, come on, get on with it,
Okay.
So that's good.
Yeah.
I might have had I listened to second or third time, but as it was pretty good.
Awesome. Yeah. Let's see. Well, anything? Did any of the lyrics or anything stand out to you?
And this is, I'll be honest, the failing of not listening to it more than I generally like to listen to an album or playlist twice through, and if I really like it, in the past I've done 3 times through or more. I wish that I had done that with this one, but I just didn't have the time, and so I don't have a deeper appreciation of any one particular song. I kind of just let the whole album flow over me.
Sure.
But one of the things I really did appreciate, and I said it a little bit earlier, but there was variety in these songs, and it wasn't, even though it's kind of the same soundscape, the songs themselves were unique, and I really appreciated that. Like, I felt like I was going on a bit of a journey. And I will put this on my rotation, and I'll make a point to listen to it again, and get a little more out of it in the future.
Nice.
For sure.
Might make that year-end list.
Yeah, maybe we'll see. Yeah, I'm gonna have more time at the end of the year.
Yeah. You had mentioned earlier about club versions of things, and there is a lot. I mean, those things are still around, right? But it is sort of a function of how music distribution has changed so dramatically. I mean, there was a time in the late 90s and early 2000s when almost every sort of big song was released as a single and had like 8, 10, 12 remixes on it. There's like a ridiculous number of remixes on it where they would send it out to, all these different people, and there would be a ton of remixes. And those things are out there now, but a lot of times they're just out on SoundCloud or other music distribution services, and you can find them if you're like digging for them. But it's pretty rare for them to be like separate releases now. It's really only the biggest artists. I was thinking, what did we listen to recently? Maybe Dua Lipa. Dua Lipa had a whole album of remixes that came out. And there's a few of sort of those pop stars that still release like remix albums, but it's a lot less common than it used to be. All right. Well, what do you give it?
You know what? I'm going to give it, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to give it an 8.
An 8?
Just because an 8, but I will say they probably have room to grow.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
How
about you?
Boy, an 8, a 9, a 10, an 8, a 9, a 10. I don't think it's quite 10 for me. But I do feel like, so I'll tell you why I'm hesitating a little bit. I have been keeping track of our ratings, and I did what's called a histogram of all of our ratings, which is it's a graph that shows how many times you've given each rating, and for some reason I give odd numbers far more often than even numbers when it comes to ratings. And so what I really want to do is give this a 9, but I'm like, is it really an 8? And I'm just not very good at. No, it's a 9 for me.
Don't let that psych you out, man. Give it what you feel.
It's a 9 for me, Travis.
All right, great, awesome. Well, it definitely is pretty good, and I thank you for bringing CHVRCHES to my attention.
All right, cool. Well, that's awesome. Travis, why don't you tell me about A Quiet Place?
Oh, I will. A Quiet Place is a movie that shares a lot of DNA with the movie we watched last week, The Descent, in that it's a very kind of slow psychological thriller monster movie and I'm afraid that you might not like that you don't get a lot of explanation for the monsters, which is a sticking point that you had last week. But this movie was an early summer movie that came out in 2018, I believe, and it was directed by John Krasinski, who played Jim on The Office, and it stars John Krasinski and Emily Blunt, who are married in real life, as a married couple who are existing on a farm post the invasion of a monster onto the Earth from outer space. We don't know, presumably from outer space because it's pretty alien, and they are and it's basically the premise is the monsters hunt by sound, and so to survive you have to be very quiet. And so this family has devised and it's their 2 kids, well, 3 kids at first, but they have devised a way to move around quietly, and because the young daughter is deaf, they all already speak sign language, so they're able to kind of communicate with each other that way, which I think is very clever. But what I want to say about this movie is it was one of the most amazing theater-going experiences of my life. This is a quiet movie, right? And it uses silence and noise to really great effect. And in the movie theater, in a full movie theater, nobody ate popcorn. People were leaving the theater with full buckets of popcorn because no one dared even crunch popcorn while they were watching this movie. It was extraordinary. And I personally was very fulfilled by this movie. I am not so needy of the explanation of the monster. One of the reasons I like that, I'll get into actually after we talk a bit, but the movie itself made $341 million on a $17 million budget and warranted a sequel, which I have also seen and also like. So this is maybe my 3rd time through this movie, and even though there are some bits in it where I go, but what about... And I think that you're probably going to stick stick on those bits a bit because I know you. I really liked this movie the third time through. So what did you think, Matt, of A Quiet Place?
Well, first of all, I like popcorn, and I want to eat popcorn. So, so I'm glad I didn't see this in the theater. No, I think that you probably have a pretty good sense of how I feel about this movie. I don't think you're going to be surprised to learn that it shares a lot of DNA with the movie last week, and there's a lot that I really liked about this movie. It is gorgeously shot. I really loved the colors in this movie. Everything is like super rich and saturated, which I love. It kind of gives you the sense that the world is like returning to nature after, because we're sort of post-human already. So I really loved that. Obviously, John Krasinski and Emily Blunt are fantastic. The child actors are really fantastic.
They're all really good, yeah.
But I think the thing that I've really learned over the last 2 weeks is that I don't like this type of monster where it's insanely fast and insanely powerful, and there's no real explanation for like energetically how it does the things that it does.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, like if you think about the natural world and predators that are like really like fast and big and dangerous, right? They're also like they have like a meal, right? And then they like lay around for like a month, right? Because it's very difficult to hunt in that way, right? Other types of hunting are far more common, like pack hunting is much more common and is not so energetically like difficult, right? Like cheetahs are amazing, right? They're the fastest things on earth, but they spend most of their time resting and not not hunting things, right? Like there are an awful lot of it's like there are so many like herd animals that will walk right past the pride of lions and not have to worry about them because it's everybody's fed,
Right. But they're not aliens, Matt.
Are these things aliens? Did I miss an explanation somewhere?
No, but they're obviously aliens.
They're obviously aliens.
Yeah, I will spoil that in the sequel they do kind of show the day they arrive, and they kind of rain down on Earth in meteors, and so that's how they arrive on Earth. So they are aliens. I'll give you that much information.
Okay.
But I don't think you needed to know that in this movie. I say, wagging my thumb.
That's your pointer finger.
That wasn't wagging. It's not my thumb. It's my index finger.
Yeah, that's definitely your finger.
But I'm wagging it.
You are. How does this animal move through the ground? The ground is thick.
I don't understand that. It doesn't move through the ground. What are you talking about?
Do they?
It moves. It runs on the ground.
Yeah. I mean, what? I feel like the very first attack, it came like up out of the ground and killed the kid.
No, it was running
right?
through the woods.
It was running through the woods and it killed the kid. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there was some CGI there that confused me, I guess.
That's because you don't have a big enough TV. I tried to warn you.
Oh my
god. I tried to warn you.
Yeah. So, anyways, but that's what I mean by energetically. Like these things, I just struggle with stuff like this where it's like there's all this like biomass that needs like to be supported, right? Like I am a scientist, right? And the sun is the source of all the energy on Earth, right? Like that's where the energy comes from. And there's all the animals and the plants and the bacteria and everything, they all fundamentally have ways of getting that energy, whether it's from some other thing or directly from the sun. And things like this just sort of energetically don't make sense, you know? And it bothers me. Like, I want, I don't know. It's sort of like, so I've been watching True Blood lately, which is fantastically soapy and dumb, and I love it, right?
Well, and it's also a fantasy. Like, it's not just vampires, it's all the other fantasy creatures. And
anyways.
Or have you not gotten that far?
No, I'm like season 5. I told you, I've been watching it lately. Oh. But I enjoy it, right? But like, the scenes where the vampires basically like fast forward is like, it's so ridiculous and dumb, right? And like, there's no part of me that's like, this makes sense, right? I ignore it because I want to see what happens next, you know, in the soap opera, right?
Right. Okay. Great. So you can't put aside you can't just say, I don't understand how aliens work, and there might be some way that this makes sense for their metabolism, and then move on with the rest of the story?
Sure. Okay, so let's do that, right? So then I go, you're telling me that like a few beeps from a toy is enough to have one of these things attack from some large distance. I don't know what, right? But some large distance. But nobody's ever gotten a sniffle. Nobody's ever gotten a cough. Nobody's ever talked in their sleep. Nobody's ever, like stubbed their toe on something and said, oh crap. Like there's not making much noise for a long time, and then there's not making any noise at all for over a year, right? Like, the whole premise of the movie just strains credulity so much. Like, I like that they have all these strategies, but where's all this sand coming from, and how
it's
are
ash. It's ash, and they're burning things every day. You see them burning things. I'm sorry. I just had to answer when you asked a question.
No, I love that, but also like, so they go like a mile. So there's like a mile of ash from here to the, whatever, right? And like, how long did it take to make the mile of ash? Like, yeah. And also, why don't they just go live next to the waterfall? That seems like a much safer strategy.
Yes, that is one thing that I also thought to myself, and that is something that comes up on social media apps. And I think the answer to that is home is here, right? If you talk about the choice between fortifying your home and converting it to be adequate, soundproof, whatever, a place where electricity happens, and you have things like, I know it's not available water. You'd have available water at the river. But, you have many things at your disposal: a bed, rooms, an underground, a cellar, under the barn area. None of that you would have. So what are you going to do? Go live literally out in the woods by the river just to be quiet? I think that's an obvious question, but I think if you think about it deeper, it makes sense that they stayed in their home.
Yeah, I'm not hung up on that particularly. I just think that the idea that you can maintain essentially perfect silence for as long as they do, especially with small children, and
well, see, you're coming up to the really big question. Go ahead and say it.
This feels like the best possible case for abortion I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was saying. How could you possibly have a child in this world? Because they get pregnant after the whole thing starts.
Yeah.
Which
sure
boggles my mind.
Yeah.
However, they are still humans. And if you've lost your kid, which is a horrible thing to happen, one of the ways they may cope is by having sex, right? And in this world, you might not know if you're pregnant until it's too late, or until it's like
well,
really
or you
a
just
bad
may
option
not
to get
you
rid
may
of.
not have the tools, right? Like you need a drug or you need someone who's medically capable of doing it, right? But I'm just saying, like, if you're stealing things from the pharmacy, some plan B seems like a good choice.
Honestly, this is a question I did mull over a lot. And I'm not a mom. I'm not a woman. I don't have, the ability to procreate. I don't have a husband to have a family with. But I can imagine a situation where a couple who has managed to survive and been fairly ingenious in their conversion of their home into a quiet place, I can imagine a situation where they'd be like, we can do this. Mm-hmm. We can, if you, honey, if you don't want to give up the baby, if you want to try to, mm-hmm. Replace the one we lost, even though that's not how they would say it, but if you want to do that, we can build this soundproof cellar, or at least try and see if it works. Because without kids, what's it all matter anyway? That's my thinking. I was able to justify it, but
I don't think any of that is out of bounds.
Plot point for a bit.
Yeah. So let's break away from plot points, because I don't want to finish this whole episode having done nothing but rag on this movie. Like, the premise of it is very tense and very, like, good, right? I get that sort of like instant buzz of like, this works and it makes sense, right? And what you get of that is very tense and very suspenseful, and also, why do the aliens always like click now? What's that about? Like,
it's a sonar thing. That's how they.
No, I know, but like it feels like a horror movie thing now.
Aliens in general in movies.
Yeah, like they always they got the clicks
because it's creepy as hell. That's why.
Yeah, I think.
Oh man, isn't that creepy?
It's pretty creepy. Yeah. Also, I think my TV is big enough. I think it's a very nice size
Your TV is big enough,
It's
Matt.
perfectly
it's
average. It's a decent sized TV. I sit
it's
pretty
normal
I don't have
TV.
I don't have a huge room. It fits nicely in the room.
That's right. It's a cozy fit in your room. It's a cozy
fit in the room.
It's as big as your room needs it to be. Yeah. So anyway, I'm sorry you didn't like this. I thought you would for sure like it more than The Descent. And I tell you, one of the things, and I want to say why I like real quick, I just want to offer one positive thing about this movie, and that the not getting the information about the aliens, I like that in certain horror movies. I like that there's not that mysterious man in black who happens to know everything about the aliens. All you get is a wall of questions, little clues they've found out by listening to ham radios, and they're probably tuned. Humanity probably isn't wiped out. There are probably areas in the world that are just fine because they're protected by the military, and these things are not indestructible. It's just that this family can't get to those places, so they're stuck where they are, and they had to make do, and they're surviving. But I really like that you don't know where the aliens came from, or that they're aliens. You just know that there's a threat and you have to deal with it because that's how it would be in real life.
Well, I think we've talked a little bit about this before. In the sense that I'm okay with not giving the audience the answers. What I'm not okay with is the sense that there aren't answers. Like, that I want somebody to have thought about these issues, right? They don't necessarily have to give them to us, but I want somebody to have thought about it. And this movie did not feel like somebody had thought about that.
Well, I can guarantee you they have, and there is a trilogy planned that does delve more into those answers. And I think, and they're not telling us what those answers are, but all I can tell you is that in the sequel, you see them arrive from outer space. And what I think this particular alien is a bioweapon being used by other aliens, a higher order of aliens, in order to kind of cleanse the planet before colonization or something like that. So I feel like the third movie is going to be kind of that. But I don't know. That's just kind of what I think, because they've gone about as far as they can go with this particular alien in the sequel, which is great, by the way. It's different. It's not the exact same thing over again. So if you didn't like it, you won't like the sequel. If anybody listened to this, did watch A Quiet Place with us and liked it, I encourage you to watch the sequel.
The other thing that I wanted to say is I think when you say you're sad that I didn't like this as well as The Descent, you're forgetting that I loved the first half of The Descent, and I didn't dislike the second half of The Descent. I just thought it was pretty average, you know. So
right,
overall,
but I kind of thought you would like this even better. I don't know.
Really? Yeah. Okay. Well,
because I do. I think this is a better movie.
Well, it might, in fact, be a better movie if you're not hung up on things that don't make sense, you know? But I kind of am hung up on things that don't make sense, right? Like, I would much rather have a movie like Hellraiser, right? Which, no, why are you giving me that face?
Well, because how does Hellraiser make sense in a real world?
Because they're demons.
These are aliens. What's the difference?
You don't know the difference between demons and aliens?
From a storytelling point of view, from a suspension of disbelief point of view, what's the difference?
Demons are fantastical, right? So in a fantasy, you can do fantasy things like magic yourself into a house or, you know, make a bunch of torture equipment appear out of nowhere.
Well, right. And none of these aliens disobey the laws of physics. As far,
well,
you know,
I think they are
disobeying law.
I think they are disobeying the law of physics. I think you're misunderstanding like how things move in the real world. Like the way that they move is not, that's not a thing. You know.
Wow. Okay. All right. I mean, you don't know how they move on their planet. That's all I'm saying. You can't. You don't.
I'm gonna reference last week again and tell you that you have this habit of inventing justifications that aren't in the movie, and that is again, I don't think that's a bad thing, but
I think it's safe to assume things. It's sometimes
not, if it. I just don't think that I should be having to do work that the filmmaker didn't bother to do.
But here I think is my point. I don't think any of that is important. I don't think any of that matters to the plot. The story is about this family trying to survive. It could be aliens. It could be you know, a band of human mutants after the nuclear apocalypse. Trying to invade their farm that they're trying to apocalypse.
People
But you know, but it could be just any threat. That's almost secondary to the story. That's the impetus to the story. And the thing of it is that, you know, I love the way this story starts, because you get the what and the why real fast. And then the rest of the story is the how. You know, not the how of the aliens, but the how of the family surviving and being a family together despite what's going on. And that's what I love about this movie. And I really am sorry you couldn't put the other stuff away enough to appreciate that part of this movie, because I thought it was expertly done, and the acting alone is just brilliant. The reasons why they separate themselves and in the end have to like fight to get back together feel earned and real. Emily Blunt has one of the like, now we've had 2 amazing bathtub scenes that we've watched in this podcast, and this is just one of the best bathtub nerve-wracking tension, like crackling bathtub scenes we've watched. So, and that there is. So
I would say it is definitely the second best bathtub scene we've seen this year.
Oh, you think it's the second best? All right, fair enough. Yeah.
Man, that was the only thing I liked about What Lies Beneath was that scene.
Okay. All right. Wow. All right. Well, I won't press you for more. You can go ahead and give it your 3 or 2 or whatever.
Wow, that's funny. You know, I have actually been thinking about my rating for this one a lot, and I was gonna give it a 5 because I feel like it's a pretty standard horror movie. You know, like interesting, right? Like an interesting premise and so forth. And I feel like it falls down in the way that a lot of horror movies fall down. And I will say this, it's a horror movie that I did not find particularly scary. Now, maybe that's just because I'm jaded at this point in the podcast or whatever, but I was not like super tense while watching this movie, you know?
Yeah. And that is my fault for that I think would have helped by being in, the bigger screen, the bigger sound. I listened to it with headphones on, and I really was and I was listening to it, watching it on a tiny screen. Like, I think I watched it on my iPad because my computer's been acting up, and I think the headphones are what really made it. I turned on noise cancellation, and I was in this world very deeply, and it was fantastic. So very tense for me. I'm gonna give it a 9. It's one of my favorites. Yep.
Nice.
Yep. Very warranting of a sequel, and I really like what they did with the sequel. So I think that also gives like retroactive points.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I am curious about the sequel. I was curious about this movie. This is a movie that I had thought about watching because it obviously got a lot of buzz and everything. And I'm actually not opposed to watching this sequel. I might throw it on at some point because you have intrigued me a little bit,
Yeah, you get a little more information, I guess, that might help you.
Yeah,
maybe. I don't know.
I guess the thing that we've talked a lot about the aliens and how much I am concerned about them, but like again, like the level of noise that you're allowed to produce to not get killed feels like so punitive, right? Like,
sure. Well, yes, I agree with you. Your example of the beeping space shuttle thing is, I think, a bit off because it continues to make noise. It's making a lot of noise continuously, and they're not able to get to him to turn it off before they get to him. But there are other instances, like dropping a picture off the wall, that attracts them. Yes, it does seem a little bit. But here's the thing. I was thinking about it as I was watching it, and I think maybe it's like high-pitched noises are worse. And so beeping, crashing, glass breaking, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it just seems really tough to me. But I don't want to harp on it. It's a good horror movie that was not for me,
Okay. All right. Well, let's we've given our ratings. People listening, let us know what you think. If you agree with me or Matt, email us at exposingourselvespodcast@gmail.com or find us on our Facebook page. And while you're there, go ahead and leave a review on our show page. It really helps us. Let us know what you think of the show in general. Matt, what do you got for me for next week?
Next week, Travis, I want to tell you that I was given a suggestion by one of our listeners. That's right. We got an email from Kevin Novacek, who we've mentioned on the page before, or on the podcast before. And
this very episode
gave me permission to give you something that I have not wanted to give you because I was afraid you weren't going to like it, but now there's a suggestion from a listener, so I have to.
So it's their fault.
It's his fault. My favorite album of all time, this makes me such a hipster, but it's Neutral Milk Hotel's In the Aeroplane Over the Sea. This is a classic album from the 90s. There are so many bearded hipsters who absolutely love this album, and I am one of them, despite not having a beard right now.
Wow. I think it is astounding that I have never heard of your favorite album from, I've never heard of the band that put out your favorite album.
Yeah, Neutral Milk Hotel is a very interesting case. They came out of the Elephant Six Collective in, I want to say Georgia, but it's somewhere in that southeast. And the head of the band was a guy named Jeff Mangum, and he created this weird, like, multi-instrumental, sort of folky pop rock opera thing-ish that is called In the Aeroplane Over the Sea. They had released a few EPs and actually one earlier album, but this one broke through to pretty wide acclaim, and they dropped off the face of the earth after this album, and the legend grew, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm,
and
yeah.
For a certain aged hipster, this is like the one, right?
Okay.
I gotta be honest, I don't think you're gonna like this.
I shall gird my loins.
Yeah, but it is a fascinating stew of, like, imagery that revolves around, like, war and Anne Frank and adolescence and puberty, and, like, it's all very odd, but moments of, like, real staggering beauty. And
I'm really interested in hearing your favorite album. I think that for that alone, I think this is going to be fascinating. And given what you just said, I think that dovetails really well into the movie that I want to give you, which is the movie 1917. It came out in 2019, confusingly, and it's a war movie. It's a movie about World War I. There were a couple of movies that came out about the same time. Dunkirk, which I really didn't like, and then this one. This one is famous for being for simulating the entire movie being one take. And so that's kind of the hook of the movie. It's directed by Sam Mendes, who has done a bunch of stuff you may have heard about. He actually directed the original West End stage musical of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but is back in, like, I think 2013 when they finally brought it to stage. But he, as movies, did American Beauty. He did Revolutionary Road. He did Jarhead, which was great. Road to Perdition with Tom Hanks, which was great. A couple of James Bond films, Skyfall and Spectre, which were both fairly well regarded. And then 1917 came out, and it was a pretty good movie. It took me a while to see it because I saw Dunkirk first and thought that this was kind of another one of those. And so I didn't want to see it, but then it got a ton of attention and really good word of mouth that came to me and convinced me to see it, and I ended up liking it. So I am curious to see what you think. We're going to do a change of tone as we move into November, but I think that our two albums, our two choices may go well together.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. Also, I did really love how you said Road to Perdition with Tom Hanks. I think that should be the name of the movie rather than just Road to Perdition. Road to Perdition with Tom Hanks, sort of like Being John Malkovich.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like, you're just walking to perdition right next to Tom Hanks. He's your accompanist.
Have you seen that movie?
No.
Have you seen that movie?
No.
I might put that on the list. It's an interesting Tom Hanks movie. It's not just it's Tom Hanks and Jude Law and Daniel Craig before he did Bond, and Stanley Tucci, who we like, and especially Paul Newman before he died. So it's some really good stuff. I might put that on the list. So, all right. Well, hey Matt, thank you for exposing yourself to me.
Well, thank you for exposing yourself to me, Travis.
Always a pleasure. I'll talk to you next week.